Hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to Center Court. We have a very special guest right now, the Dean of the McCombs School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin, Lillian Mills, who took over the school in the midst of COVID. In April of 2020, had chaired the accounting department, is a longtime veteran of the accounting department, earned her PhD at Michigan. Don't you miss accounting, Lillian?
Surprisingly, John, I just won a National Accounting Educator Award.
Ooh.
And reading the nomination letters made me very briefly miss my 30 years as a scholar and educator.
Wow.
And yet, this is the most exciting, rewarding job I've ever held in my life. And I fell in love with it in the middle of a turbulent year as interim dean during COVID, and when the national conversation changed quite a bit in summer of 2020. And I thought, if I'm having this much fun getting to know our champions and alumni via Zoom in the summer of 2020, and this much satisfaction holding the heart of a college where people can be either afraid or unhappy or angry, that it can only get better from here. And so I applied and was appointed permanently in June of 21. So yes, it's a great job.
Fantastic. And congratulations on your award as well. And someday you may get back to that, or you may not. Who knows?
I think one of our coaches, Coach Sarkeesian, talks about being all gas, no brakes here at the University of Texas at Austin. And for right now and for the time to come as dean, I'm all gas, no brakes. So it was 30 years. I loved teaching. I loved producing top flight tax policy scholarship, but I'm happy to have tied a bow on that. And now I'm doing this.
And given your 30 years at the school and all that time in Austin, you've seen incredible change. I mean, for number one, Austin is one of our most dynamic communities in the United States. People may or may not know that. We'll get into this.
Sure.
I mean, right now in particular, I think Austin is really surfing the top of a wave with tech migration from California,
and wealth
which is very exciting.
From everywhere, high tax.
Yes, and it's a very entrepreneurial place. It's a very cool place for young people, I might add. Lots of great music. It's a really fun place to be. And if you like barbecue, my God, you'll never leave Austin. But I want you to make the case for getting your MBA at McCombs. Why should a person really put McCombs at the top of their list?
Well, I'm going to take off of what you said, John, about the venture and innovation moving here. Yeah. So the top reason to come here right now is how much wealth and company headquarters and venture capital money has moved in here in the last 5 years, because it means that we have the ear and the attention of employers and entrepreneurs looking for innovation. And the sorts of people that Texas both creates and attracts tend to have an embedded optimism. And John, you and I were talking before the recording started about how important that is in turbulent times. And what we're building here is MBA graduates that are sought after worldwide because we're as well-trained or educated as anyone. And the secret ingredient is MBAs leave here willing to work hard, but also help each other. So, John, the way I present it to people, Lil doesn't think that her win requires John to lose. So we are not sharp-elbowed in a way that creates friction in teams. So when we export MBA students to Wall Street or to tech centers outside Texas, they get graduates who are innovative and helpful, who think John and Lil are going to together build something that prospers the economy and grows the pie. And that's how you make more seats at the table. If we're expanding and innovating and prospering, there's more room for everyone to do better. And
So true.
yeah, so it's not just the education, which now includes even more curricular and extracurricular opportunities in entrepreneurship. So at the MBA level, we have a John Brumley Texas Venture Labs, where teams of MBA students can work cross-campus with scientists, both engineering and science and law students, and put the business plan around an idea and launch it in a semester. So we have that going on. And we say, I'm glad you mentioned barbecue, I'll mention tacos. I want to be in the conversation with barbecue and tacos every time. Why do you move to Texas? 0% income tax rate, business-friendly business regulation, tacos and barbecue, but I want Texas McCombs to be like right up there fighting for space with barbecue of reasons business should relocate here.
Totally.
And what's happened, you talked about the growth here. I've been here 17 years. I was at University of Arizona before that, and a tour at the Treasury Department in between briefly, and that was interesting. Students increasingly can get jobs in this dream of a city to live in, and that wasn't true 20 years ago. So the more jobs that flood into Texas, it is wonderful because you can still, if you choose, either go to New York or Seattle or LA or London or San Francisco, and there are amazing jobs right here. And that's an attraction for a lot of MBA students.
Absolutely. We should mention, Dell, Whole Foods.
Oh my gosh.
Tesla moved its
Yes.
headquarters to Austin.
Yes.
And many, many, many more. And then
Yes.
obviously Google and Apple have major operations in Austin.
Indeed, they
And
do.
Microsoft
Just
as
huge.
well. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really
Yes.
amazing.
And there have been some tech layoffs, and they're bigger elsewhere in the country. The other thing that has turned out to be an upside of a Texas McCombs degree is we are a fairly intimate full-time MBA program. It's about 250 per graduating class, but it's embedded within 4,500 undergraduates, freshman to senior, and about 1,000 one-year MS and MPA program students. So if you think of the sweet spot for a full-time MBA being somewhere age 25 to 35, these one-year master students tend to still be in their young 20s, and undergraduates are undergraduates. The thing that's great about an MBA program that lives within an even bigger ecosystem is we can do things at scale that you might not be able to do in a small program. So in the undergraduate, there are 900 students minoring in entrepreneurship from all over campus. That means our business school has biology and chemistry and biotech and pre-med people walking around wanting to innovate. And so it's a lively campus atmosphere for an MBA student.
Yeah, and we should mention that UT is widely considered a public Ivy. It's one of the best
Thank you.
public universities in the world, frankly. And there are lots of advantages when you go to a world-class university that has colleges and departments well outside the business area, that you could probably take some elective courses and also collide with students from these different disciplines, as you point out, which is incredibly important if you have aspirations to be an entrepreneur, because a bunch of MBA students or a bunch of business students just creating a business on their own, it may not always work out all that well. But if you combine forces with a computer science major, an engineering major, someone in environmental sciences or agriculture or any one of the other disciplines, magic can happen. And often does.
And John, we place MBA students across a variety of industries. So there's the third that go to consulting, the third that went to high tech last year, the 25% that go straight up financial services like investment banking, and our placements there are great. And then just sort of that diversified group that's marketing and energy and sort of everything industrial, which means if it were the 2008 and 9 financial crisis hurting New York, or right now there's some West Coast tech layoffs, we're very bullish. All of our students got jobs that they wanted because they are well-rounded enough that if somehow some segment of the economy is turbulent their graduation year, we have employer connections everywhere. Just this morning, I met with an MBA alum from 2009, Scott McMurtry. He's at Apollo. The year he graduated in 2009, he had come from investment banking, and that was an awful market in 2009. But he had done a marketing internship to broaden himself. And so he went back out into a marketing job and didn't stay for a long time. But now that he's back in investment banking and he's in the renewables energy space right now, the marketing came really in handy. And so I think as a result, our MBA students come out thinking strategically, but with lots of mutual appreciation of how you need this diverse skill set at the table. And sometimes they make those experimentations in their own career and see it pay off a decade later. So, yeah.
And when you think about the strengths of your MBA program, I know one strength clearly are your STEM tracks.
Yes.
So if you are an international student coming to the US and you really want to set up your professional and personal life here after you get your degree, STEM certification is a really important ingredient in an MBA program. Could you describe your STEM tracks to us?
So thank you, John. I'll lean in particularly in the analytics space because we have two things we're doing there that might be unique and play to our strengths. So in the MS programs, we have consistently been in the top 5 in the country in business analytics. And it means those faculty show up in our MBA program and also work with our management faculty on people analytics. So when you're thinking about managing teams and leading people and organizations, one of the tracks you can take as you're getting broad management skills are how do you apply the analytics to managing your people. And we just hired a mid-career professor in marketing whose research specialty is how to compensate salespeople. So if you have one goal to sell $10 million for the year, that makes you spend the whole year chasing 10 million. But if I hit it halfway through the year, I start coasting. If I have an annual week or a weekly goal that's too small, I'm closing small deals and never taking a swing for the fences. So he's made a career of studying how do you optimize the compensation mix to
Fascinating.
to seriously provide the most incentive for salespeople. That
Right.
would be an example of an application of analytics that affects people management conducted in our marketing scholarship, because sales is a frontline marketing type of a skill.
Right.
So I'd say the analytics permeates everything. The other thing that attracts students at all levels, not just MBA, is we are an NCAA powerhouse. And if we have a top ranked analytics program and a mini NCAA titled, and we rack them up faster in the non-football, basketball sports. I mean, if you're looking across tennis and volleyball and swimming, and then occasionally, next year is going to be awesome in basketball and football.
And actually, this is a good segue because
Yeah,
you
the
launched
NIL is huge. So
And-
figuring
yeah.
out the analytics of sports, this is the place to come if you have an interest in being the next Moneyball of either sports or of people. So
because you launched a business of sports
Yes.
institute with
yes, we
Accenture
did. Yeah.
2 years ago in 2021.
Yep.
So that gives you more deep expertise in the
Yes, it
field,
does.
and probably also brings you a lot of really interesting guest lecturers to come in.
Well, and there are some major sports teams, not just on campus, but pro teams in the state of Texas.
Yes.
And one of our key instructors in this area has worked for Kirk Goldsberry, works for ESPN, and has consulted to the Spurs. And we now have a professional soccer team in town. And I've met that co-founder now. We are attracting not just the owners and the agents to come speak to our students, but we are getting there some players, some operations are letting us begin to look at biometric data, et cetera. So it's providing opportunities for our research scholars as well as our students. And
Right.
plus it's fun. So
Oh, heck yeah, it's a lot of fun. And you mentioned business analytics. Obviously, that is a really core and important part of the business puzzle today. I know that you're about to enroll your first online cohort in your
Yes.
in
Yes,
business
I
analytics.
met those students today. They're here
Ah.
for a weekend intensive, and it is a working professional online program, and it is high touch. We are giving them the individualized career coaching that we are providing to our residential MBA and MS students. So this is not a diploma mill. It is a high touch, and yet our MS and Master of Professional Accounting programs are residential full-time. Our MBA, we have multiple sleeves of it that are for working professionals. And we thought this business analytics is also in high demand by people who are working and want to upskill while they continue their employment. And this is an ideal place to be doing that.
What's the size of your first cohort in online?
It's about 20 students, John, and we were very careful to keep it small.
Yep.
I was asking the students this morning, how many of them are the firstborn in their family? And about 4 or 5 of them raised their hands. And I said, well, I was not, I was the youngest, but I know these firstborns, their parents had flashcards in front of them at age 3. And they were nodding that indeed they had some of that experience. I said, you here at this table are our firstborn, and you are going to feel all of the attention that as we're rolling this out, they get to both bond tighter with each other. I challenged each of them to when they get home by Monday, to have used our alumni connections to find an MS Business Analytic graduate who was 2 to 5 years out to connect with and have a big brother or big sister by Monday.
Great
And
idea.
then be that person a year or two from now for the next cohort, because I think this will grow exponentially, but we were very careful on the year of the rollout. We want to provide enough attention that sometimes the second and third kids get all the benefit of whatever the learning was. And
Sure.
yeah, so we want to do this small and very, very well the first time through.
And I would imagine that's pretty easy to do because you at McCombs was a pioneer in the Master's in Business Analytics degree.
Yes.
I think it was launched almost a decade ago,
Right.
way before many schools even
Yes.
thought about this. Yeah. No
And
doubt
the faculty are passionate about it.
Yeah.
And like I say, it has bled into marketing and management and accounting and finance, and it is something the entire school takes pride in, and we look for opportunities to deploy it, not narrowly, but where are the applications that business needs these decision tools for everywhere,
Right.
including inside McCombs.
Yes.
We're employing more data scientists that work for McCombs to help analyze marketing data and enrollment data and everything else.
And I want to talk about 4 things that I think are very hot right now. We've mentioned business analytics, of course, but it'd be interesting to get a little more sense of how you teach it in the full-time MBA program. We haven't mentioned sustainability, which is a
Oh
very
my gosh,
topic,
yes.
right? I'd love to mention and see what you're doing in diversity and inclusion.
I'm
And then
happy to do
finally,
that too. Yep.
we seem consumed, if not obsessed now with artificial intelligence and what it means for the future of work and life.
Yep.
And so on those 4 things, give me a little rundown of how you're exposing students to these 4 topics in your full-time MBA program. So business analytics, sustainability, diversity and inclusion, and then finally artificial intelligence.
Okay, well, I'm probably going to move quickly off the analytics because
yes, we talk a lot about
time there, and there are required courses, as you might expect. In the sustainability space, I think the state of Texas has this unique position, which is that we are the headquarters and powerhouse of oil and gas production in the United States and in the world. And so that's a legacy that I both value and honor. And we're the University of and, not or. The state of Texas produces more kilowatt hours of wind and solar combined than any other state in the country, which means more than most countries in the world. And the very large oil and gas companies are investing heavily in energy transition. So the Chevrons and Exxon Mobils and British Petroleums and Shells, because first, they don't want to be irrelevant in 50 to 100 years. And I think the horizon is 50 years, it's not 20. And it could be 100 because the extraction technologies keep growing. But they also know they have the capital and the supply chains and the infrastructure to be able to acquire transition technologies and lever them into deployment faster than most. And the traditional energy space wants to be part of that conversation also. So the large top 20, 30 MBA programs have an annual conference called Climate Cap, and Texas McCombs got chosen by its peers to run that conference this past February. And the 2 of the 3 leaders at the full-time MBA that were doing this were petroleum engineering undergraduates. And at least one of them was intending to go back to a fairly traditional large energy company, but they were all clean tech fellows. So what we succeed in doing and want to do here is bring business analysis to sustainability issues. So in my accounting program, which is #1 ranked, and I note that MBA programs are not about accounting. The place where we make our accounting reputation tends to be more undergraduate and one-year masters. But that expertise affects the the MBA program because the faculty are so exceptional.
Right.
So we have the head, he was the inaugural chair of the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board on our faculty, Jeffrey Hales. That got absorbed into the International Accounting and Auditing Standards Board. He now flies to Europe a couple of times a year to serve on that board. So we have the world expert on the difficult measurement problems around the political lightning rod that this acronym ESG creates. And I'm right here in the state where that lightning rod is firing all the time. And my answer to either end of the political spectrum is we need life cycle, cradle to grave, cost and benefits, multi-period, to not make business decisions with our heart, but to be thinking about that global difficult trade-off between energy security, energy reliability, and long-term sustainability. And that's a complex, sophisticated conversation. And that's what MBA students get to have.
Yeah. And you know what I love, what I'm taking away from this is this, that the oil and gas companies no longer see themselves as oil and gas companies. They see themselves as energy companies.
Yes.
And so if you don't heavily invest and think about the future in renewables, you have no future.
Right.
And
right.
this goes back to one of the most famous case studies of all time in business school, the railroads that believed they were in the railroad business, not the transportation business.
Yes.
And
yes.
then really diminished greatly because of air travel. Yeah. So
yeah.
It's enlightening to see that your state is ahead.
I
solar
think
and wind, which I had no idea was,
right.
In that the oil and gas companies, very traditionally, that have been based on fossil fuels, are now thinking about the future and wanting to be part of that future.
And we need all the margins moving at the same time, because we probably have more need for oil and gas in the next 10 or 20 years.
Absolutely.
Seeing Germany shut down nuclear power reactors and substituting soft coal, that's an unfortunate trade-off. I am bullish on nuclear. It's just hard to figure out over what horizon. And it's a security issue. The US has huge uranium resources. And when I think about which countries control production of the rare metals and earths needed for solar and EV, I'm a little uneasy. So we also have, and it's very small, but a minor in national security and international business, because there are more things happening in the world where you realize that national security issues can interrupt your supply chain, and that's got big downstream effects. And so we talk about those things here too. So I'm going to move from ESG sustainability, and we have an active sustainability center, and MBA students participate in it. You asked about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And again, I've got an acronym right now that is drawing a lot of lightning to it. And when I'm asked, whether in a friendly way or a hostile way, where's DEI in the business school curriculum, I say it's exactly where it ought to be, we're educating students to go be team players and leaders in a complex global world where they have to work across time zones, languages, cultures, ages, and yes, also differences of skin color and ethnicity and gender. And that requires skills in how do you bring diverse backgrounds together and make enough room for the voices at the table that you get the best ideas without a majority talking over a minority of any description. And at the undergraduate level, the top 6% of high school students anywhere in Texas can get into UT Austin. That endows us with a heavily ethnically and socioeconomically diverse undergraduate population, because Texas is 40% Hispanic, and there is a pretty wide socioeconomic spread in the state. MS and MBA and PhD enrollments, those just don't have this endowed who gets in automatically to drive the diversity. So we're always trying to message that if you come here, you will still find culture and inclusion, and you are welcome, and we're better together. But it's a common lift for many MBA programs. How do you compete in a scarce marketplace for talent?
True.
But from an education point of view and a support systems, I just think we're first class. It's in all of our leadership classes, and I would never call it mandatory training. This is just normal embedded. How do you lead teams where people come together with different subject matter expertise or other differences? And homogeneous teams reinforce a single idea and can't decouple themselves from it, and you won't get the best out of your organization.
Good point.
So let's see, we talked about ESG, sustainability, analytics, DEI. What was the fourth one?
Artificial intelligence. So what are you doing to make sure that an algorithm doesn't put one of your MBAs out of work?
Oh my gosh. I was thinking where you were going is what are we doing to make sure our MBA students themselves aren't fooling us with their own use of algorithms. So we have an Office of Instructional Innovation inside the McCombs School, and it's a couple of assistant deans and a staff of people who are working really closely with our MIS department, which is where we have faculty researching and teaching machine learning and artificial intelligence. So we've got the brain power of the faculty that spend a lot of time thinking about this, and a world-class computer science department over in our natural sciences college. So we are, as quickly as possible, internally socializing tools around how to make the best use of ChatGPT, for example, to pose an answer to an essay question and then get people critically critiquing it. So we're not head in the sand Luddite people around here. We assume, my sons are in their 30s now. I've now got grandkids. I know that people younger than I know of young college age people in my family who will say to me, yeah, mom's got me on Life 360, but there's an app to disable that so mom thinks I'm at my apartment. So the workarounds to everything are endless. And so we believe we need to embrace this as quickly as possible. As an accounting professor, I am often asked, isn't AI going to get rid of accounting? I'm going to say, no, thank goodness. It's going to remove one more piece of drudgery. So I'm old enough that I was the first generation of young accountants that had a spreadsheet instead of a pencil and a ledger paper. I can't imagine doing the job the accountants 10 years before me had to do. How horribly boring would that have been? So I'm not in the least bit worried that our recent graduates will be replaced. Not in the least. They're at a university that has a degree in artificial intelligence. We have exec ed. Maybe who I really need to be preaching to is my MBA graduates from 10 or 20 years ago. Do you want to get some more cutting edge education? Come take one of our exec ed classes in machine learning or artificial intelligence, not to learn how to code. You're way past that in your career, but to get more of the skills to embrace it and use it. And then we have corporate champions in the consulting space and the tech space. I know Microsoft and Dell Technologies and others, they are expanding their portfolio of tools. And so we have people coming to campus saying, let us show you the latest, coolest. I met with some of them about 2 weeks ago, and I said, send me homework. I can spend part of my Sunday, learning a little bit better how to do things.
And this comes back in a way to a phrase that's often uttered at the campus: human-centered and future-focused.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
What does that really mean?
Well, I opened talking about that when you hire a Longhorn, you've hired someone that you and your team want to work with. So it's a brand we interview for and then strengthen while they're here in the MBA program to go out. Our tag phrase of what starts here changes the world. We believe that can happen one human connection to the next also. And I think I saw a note here about leadership skills that you wanted to ask me about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to phrase one that's one of my core values that has to do with acting in gratitude. And we have a young professor, Amit Kumar, who's published a series of papers about the benefit of expressing a sincere compliment or gratitude to someone that has helped you. We underestimate how good we will feel, and I would underestimate how good it would make you feel, John. But if I will only do it, we both have so much happier a day. And I have found this to be true my whole life. I've got 5 women that I individually share 3 things I'm grateful for every morning. And I'm either reflecting on the day before or the day to come, and it puts me in a different frame of mind for the opportunities and challenges of the day. So that's part of the human-centered part. Right. The future-focused, I think a leadership skill you need is to be able to make bold investments in yourself without entrenchment. So life is long. I was not ready to be dean, all gas, no brakes, until I had tied a bow on research and teaching. And I am young enough to have the energy for it and senior enough to make that transition with my whole heart. So you can make longer bets when you're younger in your career, but you're not trapped. You can change directions. And that's true with financial investments. When you're young, you can afford to take more risks, and you should. And The other thing, and I think it's related to the human-centered, but perhaps to the future-focused, is there's that book, 4 Agreements, and one of the 4 is be impeccable with your word. The accounting CPA in me really values integrity and that is a long-term asset. Your character, they say time's your most valuable asset. No, it's not. Your character is your most valuable asset. Sure, time's a close second. It's like I want to be in the fight with barbecue tacos and, like, yes, time's important, but character is even more important. And that has future focused implications. Shortcuts now will hurt you later.
Yeah. Trust
Yeah.
may very well be the new currency, given all the distrust in the world.
Yes. Yes.
And it's extremely important, and so is integrity. Well, let me just say, I am very grateful, have terrific gratitude for having you spend some time with us today. Really appreciate it. You're a terrific ambassador for the school, and your enthusiasm and passion for what you do really comes through.
Well, I hope I will get to meet many future students that this lovely webinar might encourage to apply.
Oh, it will. It will.
And my gratitude for you, John. You are able to, as you might expect, these kinds of conversations can be nerve-wracking, and you make it easy. And so you're a great ambassador for graduate education. And I appreciate that you're a friend, and you should call me often. When I can help, let me know. And we say hope and horns.
Very good. Well, thank you so
right.
much again. And for all of you out there, you just got a gift, a generous gift from Dean Mills. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. You're watching Center Court.